Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us The Yoga Stripper, a Las Vegas memoir of sex, drugs, and namaste. And that's exactly where we're heading today.
Yeah.
Our mission, like always, is to really pull out the most interesting, the most insightful bits for you, give you that shortcut to understanding without, feeling totally buried under all the details.
Hmm.
This memoir, it really pulls back the curtain on a world lots of people are curious about stripping in Vegas, but it's also about her personal journey.
Right, through drug use, relationships, and then this pretty surprising turn towards self-discovery with yoga.
Exactly. So let's dive into this really unique story and see what stands out.
Well, what's immediately striking, I think, is that title, right? The Yoga Stripper, that contradiction.
Yeah.
And the book really tackles these sort of contrasting worlds head on. What's interesting, too, is why she started stripping. It wasn't like the stereotypical hardship story.
Right.
No, it was more, well, a pretty relatable feeling, actually. Just feeling lost after college.
Yeah.
Heartbroken, a bit disillusioned, looking for something different.
Yeah.
And she saw stripping, believe it or not, almost like a sales opportunity.
Huh. A sales job. That definitely makes you rethink any assumptions you might have right off the bat.
Totally. And how she got in, the audition at the Spearmint Rhino, it sounds almost, well, anticlimactic.
Really, not some big stressful thing.
Apparently not.
Right.
She just describes walking past the manager. That's it.
Wow.
And I think that kind of mundane detail really highlights the sheer scale of the place.
Right, because it wasn't some small, dark club.
No, we're talking 20,000 square feet,
Mm.
packed, hundreds of women on a busy night. It just sort of blows up that typical image, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That sheer size, it almost reframes it, doesn't it? Like a bustling marketplace or something.
Exactly. And she points out how flexible the work was. The dancers had, a lot of control over their hours,
Okay.
but the earnings were directly tied to their hustle, their salesmanship, really.
So pure commission, basically. Working for tips.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very entrepreneurial setup, though.
Yeah.
Obviously an unusual one. Your income is just a direct reflection of your ability to connect and, well, sell dances.
It's like extreme commission work. But she's also clear, right? Despite maybe the sales pitches about VIP rooms.
Oh, yeah, very clear. No matter what a stripper tells you, there's no sex in the champagne room.
Okay, so that distinction's important.
Crucial for understanding the job. But then she also makes this really sharp observation.
What's that?
She points out that the actual legal definition of prostitution, agreeing to sexually arouse for money, well, she felt it perfectly described what she did every day.
Wow, that's very direct, very honest.
That honesty really comes through. Like the anecdote where she doesn't even remember giving someone a dance like 20 minutes later.
Mm-hmm.
This just highlights how transactional so many of these interactions must have been. Brief, repeated encounters, not always about deep connection.
And she wasn't naive about it, right? She understood the dynamics.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about the game at Spearmint Rhino. She even suggests the strippers there have these incredible, like once-renowned sales skills.
Huh. So it's not just about looks.
Not at all. It's persuasion, performance. She even shares some of the pretty wild lies guys would tell her.
Yeah.
Really paints a picture of what she was navigating.
Yeah, you get a sense of that. And she mentions, just briefly, something about Sapphire, a rival club.
Right, the comfy beds at Sapphire.
Yeah.
Just little details like that that give you a more nuanced picture. Different places, maybe slightly different vibes, different perks, even in the same business.
Okay. And then there was Molly,
Ah, yes, Molly, her stripper alter ego.
which was more than just a stage name, it sounds like.
Much more. Molly was like this fearless, free version of herself. Sexy, brave, strong, all the things she admired when things got tough outside the club.
She could just become Molly.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Step into that persona. It's a really fascinating coping mechanism, a way to explore another side of herself.
Yeah, creating Molly, it says a lot about the psychological side. The pressure, the need to maybe compartmentalize in that kind of environment.
Mm-hmm. And that need for a shield, it also points to, well, the more intense parts of the environment she was in. Lines could blur easily.
Hmm.
In the memoir, it definitely doesn't shy away from the darker side, the temptations.
Right.
Like her brief connection with Aaron, this guy who sold party drugs.
Okay.
It gives you a glimpse into this kind of casual attitude towards stuff like GHB in some Vegas party scenes.
GHB, like the date rape drug.
Yeah, but she describes it being used almost matter-of-factly in small amounts for relaxation, maybe euphoria, sometimes balanced with cocaine. It's a Pretty stark look into a specific subculture.
Yeah, definitely. And then there was that incident with Xanax.
Right, at Sapphire,
Yeah.
offered by this guy Bobby. And the contrast is just jarring. She passes out at work after taking this pill.
Oh, wow.
And it's right after she'd apparently been on this luxurious trip to New York City. It just really underscores the, I don't know, the instability, the precariousness of her situation then.
How quickly things could unravel.
Exactly. And Bobby himself sounds like a complicated figure. He had this poster, right? A Sports Illustrated model.
Yeah.
And he kept insisting the author looked exactly like her, under her alias, Leah. It's just, it's bizarre, but also kind of sad, maybe.
Huh. Weird.
And then, amidst all this, she's also interacting with these homeless heroin addicts, Bobby and Tommy, just offering these raw glimpses into their lives in Vegas, too.
So you see these extremes right next to each other.
Yeah, the spectacle, the wealth, the poverty, it's all there, reflected in her experiences.
So what was the turning point? How did the yoga part come in?
It seems like the big shift was her decision to go to Costa Rica for yoga teacher training.
Okay, so a deliberate escape.
Yeah, a conscious effort to find a new direction. And it's kind of remarkable how she found these really significant life lessons there. Totally different world.
Like what?
Well, learning about ahimsa, the yogic idea of non-harming, and also, kind of funny, the unexpected humor in just openly discussing bodily functions with the other trainees. But mostly finding this sense of peace, of belonging within that yoga community.
So it offered something structured, something deeper.
I think so. A path for self-reflection.
Yeah.
There was this bonfire ritual she describes, releasing negative energy into a coconut. Symbolic, sure, but it represents this deliberate letting go.
Moving forward.
Exactly. And the contrast when she comes back to Vegas.
Yeah.
It's just so stark. She's now a certified yoga instructor.
But still stripping.
Still stripping. The literal embodiment of the book's title, The Yoga Stripper.
That duality, yeah. And it seems like that continued in her relationships and encounters, too.
Oh, absolutely. That story about the threesome in the Bellagio.
Right, with the French surgeon and his wife.
Just surreal, almost darkly funny. And then the shopping spree afterwards and the wife confessing something personal. It just highlights the completely unexpected, sometimes bizarre interactions she was having.
Yeah, not your average Tuesday night. And then Ultra Music Festival, how did that fit in?
Well, what's interesting is how she framed it. She looked at it through her new yoga lens,
Really? How?
applying principles like ahimsa, thinking about respect, non-harming in that crowd, and Ishvara Pranatana,
Which is,
kind of like surrender, acceptance, surrendering to the music, the flow. It's this fascinating juxtaposition, this huge, intense music festival viewed through yogic ideas, contrasting that potential for unity with the usual transactional vibe of the club.
that's a really interesting perspective shift. But not all encounters were positive, I take it.
Definitely not. There's the story about the disastrous date with Mike, the promoter.
What happened there?
It just really highlights her growing sense of self-worth, I think, and her preference for being financially independent. Their expectations just clashed completely. She clearly wasn't interested in just being like someone's arm candy.
Yeah, sounds like she'd changed quite a bit by then. What about the actual business side of stripping? Does she get into the nitty-gritty?
She does. Lays out the financial reality pretty clearly. Being an independent contractor, paying house fees, everything, depending on tips.
Right.
And there's an incident with a customer refusing to pay for dances. The bouncer had to step in. It just shows the potential for conflict, the need to stand your ground.
Mm-hmm. And wasn't there something about her locker?
Oh, yeah. Having her locker broken into, her stuff stolen, that's a huge violation, right? Shows the vulnerabilities. And her reaction, getting really angry, it just underscores the emotional toll incidents like that could take.
Yeah, I can imagine. But even with all that, she found some useful takeaways, like sales advice.
Yeah, surprisingly practical stuff. Sales advice from a Las Vegas stripper. Things like don't ask, do tell.
Okay.
Meaning be assertive, direct the interaction. And the idea of peacocking.
Peacock.
Yeah, basically using flashy, eye-catching outfits to draw attention. Stand out in the crowd. These are real strategies honed in that specific environment.
Makes sense. What about the guys who wanted to, save her?
Ah, the Captain Save-A-Bitch types, as she calls them.
Right.
Her reaction really shows her strong sense of agency. She completely rejected that pity, that savior complex, didn't want or need rescuing.
Good for her. Did she have support from other dancers?
Absolutely. She talks about the importance of wing women, specifically her partnership with Lady Sita. It highlights that camaraderie, the support networks that definitely exist there.
So it wasn't all just competition.
Not entirely, no.
Yeah.
Though she does contrast her own approach with dancers like Daria, who were more career-focused, cultivating regulars.
And the author wasn't really into that.
It seems not. Her reluctance to form those deeper, ongoing client relationships maybe suggests her own boundaries or wanting to keep a certain detachment.
Okay. And she shares moments with her work friends too, right? Outside of just working.
Yeah, anecdotes from the VIP room, going to Jasmine's wedding, it gives you a glimpse into those unique social dynamics, the bonds that formed despite the unconventional workplace. Genuine friendships clearly developed amidst everything else.
So looking back on it all, what was her final take?
Well, she definitely reflects on the mental toll, how stripping shifted her perspective, made the quote-unquote real world start to feel a bit unnatural after a while.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
But despite the difficulties, the darker moments, her overall reflection is actually quite positive. She embraces the chaos, the experiences, and the person she became through it all, the yoga stripper.
So, not a story of regret then.
Not really, no. It's more an acceptance of this unique, complex period in her life, acknowledging the challenges, but also recognizing the personal growth, the strength she found.
So, okay, wrapping up this deep dive, we've really explored the often unexpected realities of Vegas stripping, followed her personal journey, which is quite something, and navigated that mix of, well, humor and darkness in her story.
Hmm.
For you, the learner, we hope this gave you a good, solid understanding of the memoir, those aha moments, but without feeling, totally swamped by information.
Yeah, and it leaves you with a pretty compelling question to think about, I think.
Which is,
Well, given her transformation and how she embraced this path that many people would see as really unconventional, maybe even stigmatized,
hmm,
what does that tell us about our societal expectations, about how people can grow, find themselves in the most unexpected places?
that's a good point. It definitely challenges some assumptions.
Right. So maybe something for you to mull over your own assumptions and just being open to the really diverse ways people navigate their lives and figure out who they are.